the only person who can tell you who you are is yourself. So I was starting to feel a bit, when am I going to be a performer? Oh, that's the point. I don't actually wish I knew these things. End of video. Again, another thing I feel incredibly passionate about. I don't know why we all are so surprised by this. And you're like, what is going on? I'm just making myself laugh. This is meant to be a very serious advice. Hello and welcome to the first episode of Sip and Sweet. The episode where we have a sip and we eat something sweet. These videos are for when you're putting on your makeup in the morning, when you've made yourself a cup of tea, you can grab a sip and something sweet with me. And let's get into episode 1. For drink of choice, episode 1, which, no surprises here currently, this drink will be a frequent, and that is just standard English breakfast cup of tea with a strong brew and a splash of milk. Not too much. I am not a milky tea fan. However, to make it a bit more interesting, I'll show you my mug. These Starbucks mugs are my favourite to drink an English breakfast tea. I am very passionate about what type of mug I use for what type of tea. So if you're interested in seeing that, then that's a reason to watch more episodes. But if you also care deeply and passionately about mugs, like I do, it's beautiful. I will say that this one in particular is one of my favourite of my Starbucks mugs. This mug is from a place called Roclo. I might not be pronouncing it correctly. I don't know if it's pronounced more Roslo, but when I say that people get confused of it being Warsaw. I don't know. This is also one of my favourite places in Europe I've ever been. Highly recommend. That's the mug. That's the sip. And for something sweet, you may be surprised by this one. For something sweet, these are some cookies that I made. Now, if you don't know, get to know, I am not a cook, a chef, a baker, any of those things by any means. So when I do things like this, I have to really celebrate myself. This is a deliciously Ella recipe from her cookbook, Quick and Easy. I do not own the cookbook. I took a picture of it because my mum has it. I would like this one. Yeah. Yes, please. If you have this recipe and you haven't made these before, highly recommend. Can't say. Every single time I do one of these episodes, there's going to be a home-baked good. But we could aspire. I did actually really enjoy making it, so maybe we'll just eat the same cookie and drink the same cup of tea in the same mug every time. That's not the point of this. Anyway, should we get on to the subject of today? These episodes are also inspired by things I've written in this diary. You won't be seeing this diary again because I only have 2 pages left. My intention behind these videos is to share things that I have experienced and that I have learned that could help you if you are going through a similar situation. And you're gonna see this in my lessons, I'm not for being told what to do. In any stretch of the word. If something I'm saying resonates with you, take it. If it doesn't resonate with you, leave it. But if I could just help one person by the myriad of things I've experienced, just one person messaged me saying, your video really helped me because I was going through X. Thank you so much. That would honestly mean the world. Today's Sip and Sweet is inspired by things I wish I knew when I left drama school. However, another disclaimer, I don't actually wish I knew these things. End of video. No, what I mean is, I don't wish I knew these things at the time because experience is the greatest teacher and you learn the most through your life experience. Someone can say to you, don't do that, and I'm sure we all have a story of someone saying, don't do that, don't go out with that person. Yeah, we've all been there, and you go, oh no, that's a really good idea, oh no, but they say this, and then time passes and you go, Yeah, I was told that. However, you have been given the gift of learning these lessons. So we'll call it lessons I've learned that I hope one person watching might be helped by. Or when I was journaling earlier, lessons that come to mind when I think of big lessons I've learned in the 5 years since I've graduated. I'm really selling this video, aren't I? If you are not a performer, if you have not been to drama school, don't go anywhere, because I still feel these lessons can be applied to you, but in your said industry area of life. It all comes together, as we're going to talk about. Be sure to check, I'll leave timestamps below, if you see something that shines to you. If you see something you're drawn to, just head to that chapter, take what you need. Okay, if you are just graduating and you're suddenly like, oh, I don't have to go to school anymore. Oh, what do I do? What do I do? You are not alone. And I don't know why we all are so surprised by this. If you went to school, if you started school at age 4 and then you finished school at age 21, correct me if I'm wrong, my maths isn't always great, that is 17 years of your life. 17 years is a long time. So the fact that when you leave school and you're like, what's going on? I don't know what I'm doing, but you feel like you should, this is going to be a key word, it's going to keep coming up, you feel like you should know what you're doing and you feel like you should have it all figured out, you feel like you should know how to be an adult. No, absolutely not. It's almost like, I really remember this, and I mean, it was also a pandemic when I was going through this. So just to add that in, some context for me, graduated in 2020. It's almost like you're being reborn, but you're being born into an adult's body and you're like, okay, well, what do I do next? No one's telling me what to do. I'm not in a year. You also go from this thing of, you grow up being in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, continuous, and everyone's kind of in the same year. Then all of a sudden you turn into a graduate, an adult, and no one's in years anymore, and then everyone is at different stages. And you're like, what is going on? So if you are currently experiencing this, treat yourself with some kindness. We don't shout at a baby when they're born and go, why can't you talk? They're a baby. You are effectively a baby adult. And again, as someone who's 26, I now look back at myself at 21 and think, you were so young. You were so young. I'm acting like I'm 50. I'm sure I'm gonna sit here in 5 years' time and watch this very clip and go, I thought I was so old. And I wasn't. That's just the way. That is just being an adult. However, I do really remember when I graduated being like, I feel like I need to know exactly what I'm doing, know exactly how my days run, and that, let's set the expectations at an achievable level. This next one could be a series in itself. What I feel would have been a very beneficial lesson in school is the lesson on who are you? Who are you? People ask you this all the time and you're like, I don't know. I do not know who I am. And the thing is, if you don't know who you are, you don't know what you want, you don't know what you want life to look like, so you can see an image of just floating. And then when the should wind comes of you should be doing this, you're like, going this way. And then you land there and then you're like, oh, I'm living this life that I feel like everyone wants, but I actually don't want that. This is something that people go on their own journey with, and I feel that people find different things in the right time of their life. Inner work, personal development are essential parts of being a human and being a performer. They go together. It's like a Venn diagram. You've got human, performer, they intertwine. This question of who you are is such a big topic because we're humans and humans are multi-layered, like onions. Just as a side note, When I was teaching, I played, what did I do a dance to? In Shrek 2, the fairy godmother sings it. I Need a Hero, Holding Out for a Hero, the version from Shrek. I played that song to the children I was teaching, and I said, guys, do you know what film this is? They said Super Mario Brothers, not Shrek 2, which is the correct answer. I haven't seen Super Mario Brothers. And this is an issue I feel passionately about. This lesson in particular really links with the whole, yeah, I'm saying I wish I knew these things, but also life. Life is what taught, experiencing life is what taught me these things, and that was a valuable lesson, more so than someone going, this is how you do ABC. Which, experiencing life is a great way to know who you are. But there's also an intentional way of knowing who you are, and this is where everyone is different. I am a huge advocate for inner work mindset. You can change your life through changing your thoughts. That is something I wholeheartedly believe. It is something I have done. As we've already touched on briefly, I graduated in the pandemic, which was horrendous. I also at the time was experiencing an unravelling of things that I always thought one way were a different way. Also, I'd been broken up with. Also, we've done graduating with pandemic, but also just pandemic, full stop. So all of these things really made me feel horrendous, and then led into nearly a year later feeling incredibly sad. I always used to describe it as feeling like I was in a well, deep in the well, and I looked up and I couldn't see that beam of light anymore. And through doing many things, inner work being one of them, I brought myself back up that well, and the light grew bigger. And I look back at myself from 2020, 2021 and just think, the person that got me out of that was me. I've been reflecting recently on inner work. Inner work can be something that you find yourself doing when you're going through difficult times, whether it be a breakup, a hard situation, a loss. When you're feeling great, do we write about when we're feeling great in our diary all the time? No, but there's a lot more stories, especially in my older ones, maybe not in this current one. There's a lot more stories in my older journals of things going wrong and needing to get my feelings out, which is why diaries are great, but also the power of inner work when you're feeling like life is going well. The way I'll put it is, who do you spend the most time in your life with? The answer for everyone is yourself, because from the moment you're born to the moment you leave, you will always be with yourself. So why we don't prioritise that relationship with ourselves, and then why when things go wrong and we're like, I don't know who I am, and we're like, I don't know, I don't understand. Knowing who you are is at the root of your life. If I had a tree, I'm using a lot of imagery. I do like using imagery to be better. If you had a tree, who you are is the roots. The inner work is the roots. The thing about inner work is you can't see it. It's not something I can show you other than my piles of diaries. So we can do this inner work and then we're like, I can't see anything. However, I also have experienced focusing on my inner world and then life dramatically changing like that. It can happen in both ways, but we can't control the way that it's going to happen. What you can control is your inner world, who you are. Again, this could be a whole video, so if you have any questions on this, leave it in the comments, because I'm sure this will be involved in many of the episodes of Sip and Sweet. Final point on this inner world lesson for now. I said this in a vlog that I did recently. When I graduated college, I should have been at the peak of my capabilities as a performer. No, I'm using the word should here. It's gonna make sense. Should have been at the peak. And maybe in some aspects that maybe is true, because when I was at college, I was dancing sometimes 12 hours a day. Whereas now, I'm going to class once or twice in a week. That is 5 hours. Not even that. you know, kind of 5 hours max a week. That is a dramatic change. I always did more than 5 hours in a day. So you would think physically, as a dancer, you should, again, note that word, even though it makes my hair stand on edge, should be at the top. However, would I say that maybe better doesn't have anything to do with it. If I say I enjoy myself as a performer more now than the college version of me, 100%. And is that because I've got any better technically, any better stylistically, any better anything physical? Absolutely not. It's because of inner work that I've done, the inner deep confidence, self-worth, knowing what I enjoy, all of these things, that is so present. So it doesn't matter that I don't dance 12 hours a day anymore. A point just to add to lesson 2. If you are in a place, which if you are not alone. If you just feel stuck and you're like, what am I doing? Don't feel happy, don't feel fulfilled, don't feel inspired, don't feel, just overall not feeling great, start from within. That sounds so like live, laugh, love on the wall picture, but it's the truth. It is the truth, and just something I feel so passionately on, because putting the time into inner work has changed my life. And I know it's changed so many other people's as well. Before we start this next lesson, I haven't actually taken a bite of this. We are gonna have to take, I guess, interludes whilst I eat, because I'm not gonna obviously eat and speak at the same time. If that wasn't obvious. I mean, 10 out of 10. Let's start high. This tea is finished. So I'm gonna make myself a new one, and then we'll come back for lesson 3. I was gonna say, lesson 3, this is a good one. They're all good ones because I literally wrote the list. Okay, I've got a new tea as well. Second tea. How many teas are we gonna drink in this episode? Also, I think this could be my 8th cup of tea today. You can relate to that. Anyway, going hand in hand with the inner work is another thing I feel incredibly passionate about. This is kind of like A and B to the inner world. Part A, know what you want. Part B, know your values. Know what you value. And what I mean by that is what is important to you, what isn't important to you. What's important to me might not interest you at all. And that's fine. That is what makes humans humans. We're all different, we all want different things, we all enjoy different things, we all don't enjoy different things. And there's no one path. However, dare I say, the thing is, when you're in an institution, when you're in a controlled environment like a school, where there are exams, there is a set path, because you're working towards this assessment with a marking scheme. However, life doesn't have a marking scheme. Chop that up. Seriously though, I'm just making myself laugh. This is meant to be a very serious advice. Is it ever that serious? I feel like, isn't that a meme? Did someone say that? I don't know, anyway. However, when you've had, as I've already said, 17 years where there is a criteria, there is a list of things that you need to do to pass to move on to the next thing, no wonder we try and then replicate that in our adult life by following the word that I've said a few times, and I feel after this point we're saying goodbye, because I said goodbye to this a few years ago, and that is oh, I should be doing this. The problem is when you don't know what you want and when you don't know what's important to you, as I've already said, you're just floating. And therefore you can get stuck in these places that is what everyone else, that is a big, everyone else is doing. And the thing is, what everyone else is doing, 9.9 times out of 10 is probably not what you want to do. I said it. And this, with all of these points, is again a journey and something that you learn through experience. Because going against the grain of what everyone else is doing and what everyone else wants, can feel difficult, it can feel isolating, here's a big one that I really relate to. It can make you feel like you're not successful because you are not aiming for what everyone else is aiming for because you want something else. And that is a really interesting thing to experience, grasp, concept, all these words. I'll use a personal example. This tea's gonna be too hot for me to drink. Let's not burn my tongue. There is an area of the performing arts industry that I have never been interested in working in. Throughout my time at college, I was like, it's just not for me. And at the beginning, I didn't even know why. And also, here's another thing I feel passionate about. You don't need to know why you don't want to do something. If you feel that you don't want to do it, don't do it. You do not have to explain yourself to somebody else. Anyway, there's an area of the industry that I always knew I didn't want to work in. And when I was at college, I remember being sent for an audition and being like, no, I don't want to do that job, so why would I go to the audition? Bold choice for me, but then pandemic, so then things changed. We went through a lot. Anyway, yeah, and instead I did my ballet assessment. That was more important to me. This area, so many people enjoy working in. So many people solely want to do that, and that is completely fine. However, I definitely ebbed and flowed in and out of, I feel like I should do this. So then I'd go to a load of auditions and then I'd be reminded, I don't want to do that. And then I'd stop again and then I'd go back in again. I'd be like, oh, maybe. And I even remember I got down to the finals of one. And this was when I'd never worked professionally. So I was starting to feel a bit, when am I going to be a performer? Oh, that's the point that we can go back to. That's actually going to be a bonus lesson. So if you want to click down there, go to that now. And I was like, if I get this, I will take it. I didn't get it, so I didn't have to take it. But the message of telling this story is, yeah, you can go, oh, I know what I want, I know what's important to me. But it's still working with that ebb and flow of life, as I always say. You're still learning through experience. We're not always going to get it right 100% of the time. You might know you didn't want to do something and you agreed to do it. However, I bet you've learned that lesson of what it feels like to be in that position. You might make the mistake again. Who's to say it's a mistake? To conclude this lesson and point, following what you feel you should be doing will not lead you to what you think success is. It might lead you to what you think success should look like, but is it going to deeply resonate with who you are? I'm not sure. So if you can start from a place where you're taking action from what you know you want, what you know is important, then you're already going to feel more fulfilled, whether you have the job or whether you don't have the job. Next episode, we're going to talk about something that I don't know the subject of yet. My next episode of Sip and Sweet is going to be something around inner world, inner work, personal development. If talking about anything to do with inner world, inner work, personal development interests you, then make sure you're subscribed in order to not miss the next episode of Sip and Sweet. And yes, I have in fact finished my sweet for today, but there are 2 more in that Tupperware box, so I might have another one before the end of the episode. It depends how much I'm going to talk. Can I sip this tea yet? She's on the brink of burning my tongue, so we're going to give her 30 seconds to a minute and then we'll try again. As well as knowing who you are as a person, and as I've said, these are interlinked, which is why this is now this lesson. There's also knowing who you are as a performer. And a theme of this could be a whole video in itself. Know what your artist needs. What kind of classes do you need to go to feel like an artist? What do you want to get out of those classes? People want to get different things out of class. How many times do you want to take class ideally? Do you even want to go to class? You might not even want to go. What kind of exercise do you want to do? Do you want to go to the gym? Do you want to do Pilates? Do you just want to walk? Do you just want to run? Do you want to take up a completely different sport? How much time do you want to spend with other artists? I have been through periods of my life where I have spent so much time with all my performer friends. There's other periods of my life where I've spent more time with my friends who aren't performers. What does that look like for you? Know what works for you. Are there any other art forms that you're interested in? I have been getting back into art recently. I've been making some videos on it. If you're interested, I'll put them down below. But for me, something that sticks with me all the time, I love taking photos. I have always loved making videos. These are all things that fill up that artist cup without me having to dance on a stage. Don't get me wrong, I love to dance on a stage. It's my favourite place to be, and I'm using a silly voice to mask the fact that I'm sad that I'm not doing it today. Know how to fill up that part of yourself. It's kind of like, okay, Sims reference. What kind of references am I gonna make? Shrek and Sims. You can tell what kind of childhood I had. Childhood I did. Shrek, Sims, dancing. That's a pretty great life. In Sims, the characters have the needs bar. It's like, I haven't played Sims for a really long time. Let's not get distracted by Sims. They've got sleep, hunger, social, comfort, all of these. As an artist, you've also got that artist need bar. And again, sometimes the artist bar might be really full. You might be working on a personal project, you might be working towards a job, you might be doing X, Y, Z. Sometimes it's also going to be really low, and sometimes you're going to be like, am I even a performer? I don't remember the last time I felt like I was a performer, and that's okay. You would not expect yourself to be happy every single moment of every single day for the rest of your life. So as an artist, don't expect yourself to feel like a 10 out of 10 perfect artist every single day of my life. Ooh, I needed to hear that one. How do we start with this one? Learn how to experience a life that you enjoy. I experienced this more at the beginning than I would now, because when I was graduated, pandemic, no industry, no auditions, no going to class, no anything. And all I wanted was for the industry to come back and for a job. It's all I wanted, and therefore I could not enjoy where I currently was. Just after the pandemic, I worked in a pub for like 9 months, on and off, because this is when we were going in and out of lockdown, the pubs were going in and out of closure. If you worked in a pub during the pandemic when there was like, you had to order food with a beer, and you experienced that, we are bonded. And I look back at that now, 5 years later, and think, that was so fun. I worked, we had 2 teams, so I think I did one evening, 3 full days. And like the people I worked with, I really enjoyed working with them. We used to have so much fun. We used to go out on the days that we weren't working. And it had that really like community family feel that maybe now I don't have so much when I'm working for myself and I'm just sat here at my desk working on my laptop talking to a camera. I don't have that same level of connection when I'm working as I did then, and we just had fun. Anyway, we're going on a bit of a tangent. I look back at that and I think, why did I not just enjoy where I was? But because I was so focused on, I just want to dance, I just want a job, I hated it at the time. I just wanted that next thing. And I'm sure you can think of something where you look back and go, why did I not just enjoy that? These things that at the time we think are the worst thing ever because we haven't got to our desired destination. And then we look back and we're like, oh, but there was actually a lot of fun things about that. I'm gonna mention a little word here. And if you hear this word and you're like, how do I do that? Again, you're not alone. I haven't learned fully, but I do feel like I've come on a journey with this. Let's talk a little bit about detachment. If you're wanting to go out with someone, then hey, maybe you've experienced this, and they're constantly texting you all the time, how are you, what are you doing? The texts are constantly coming through all the time. You would be like, too much, this is too much, and not be interested. If with what you want, you're constantly like, all I want, you're holding on to that thing, what's going to happen to that thing? It's repelled. And I remember when I used to first hear about this, I'd be like, yeah, but how am I meant to want that thing but also not want it at the same time? And something I have found is with detachment, when you really desire something, when you really desire a goal, of course, you're going to feel so passionately about it. Of course, you're going to put so much energy into it and so much focus and all of these things. But at the same time, you can be open to how these things come about, open to how they happen, open to I'm going to this destination. I know I'm going to A. Oh, but on the way, I actually just saw something out my window that's really interesting me. And you go to that, and then you're like, oh, actually, I want to stay at destination B. Again, this point is kind of also touching on the whole enjoying the journey. Which again, the theme of this video could be a whole video in itself. And that is definitely part of it. You cannot have everything you desire, but still be grateful for everything you already had. I was in yoga the other day, and the teacher said, the secret to having everything you want is knowing that you already do. And I feel no matter where you are in your life, there is always one thing to be grateful for. Tea is always mine. For the final lesson of this week's Sip and Sweet, to have fun in the process of being a creative, being a performer. I feel like more people from outside the industry go, oh, that's a really difficult industry, that's a really hard job, that's a really hard thing to get into. You hear all these things a lot. And when people say that, you can feel a bit of resistance, like, okay, I get it, you know? But at the same time, it is actually really hard. On a really rooted level, it is so hard to put so much energy into something that you love so much and you feel so much deeply for, and feel like you're not getting anywhere, feel like no one is seeing it, feeling like no one is, I'm going to say no one is appreciating it, but I do, again, this is a completely different conversation of wanting validation from others, wanting validation from yourself. But at the end of the day, as performers, we are performing to an audience. And as much as you can have that validation within yourself, there is still, the job role is to perform to an audience. And that is difficult. And there's if you're a performer, you don't need me to tell you the list of ways that this can be difficult. We can focus on how difficult and how hard something is, and that be the glasses that we're wearing. And if we're wearing those, this is really hard, this is difficult glasses, we're going to keep seeing more things that are difficult and hard. It's like when you go, oh, I'd really like to drive an Audi, and then all you see is Audis. It's that same thing, your brain is then going, I'm noticing this more, because this is the glasses that I'm wearing. You know that something is difficult and challenging, but you go, I'm going to choose to wear the glasses of enjoyment and fun, and not in this whole toxic positivity way. I'm not about that either. I'm about the feelings. However, when you're wearing the glasses of, I'm grateful to be experiencing what I'm experiencing right now. If you're going through something difficult, I'm grateful to be learning these lessons. I'm grateful to be I'm grateful to be going to class. I'm grateful to being with this person. I'm grateful to be creating this, whatever it is for you. You will then see more things that are going to give you reason to feel grateful for them. What you focus on, you notice more. But the weird thing about this is we can know that it's difficult and challenging, but we don't appreciate ourselves enough for that. If you've fallen for the trap of the double whammy of, this is really difficult and I'm seeing that it's really difficult and I'm giving myself a really hard time because it's so difficult, then whereas we can know that something's difficult, but if something's difficult, appreciate yourself for doing it. I had this realisation in class, I said this in another video, but I'm going to repeat myself now. There is so much to be said for when you keep going, when you feel like, what am I doing? Can I keep going? Am I doing the right thing? When you're in this, I don't know if this is a universal thing. I know that when I've spoken to some of my friends, they go, yeah, I know what you mean. But when we have the performer meltdown, things are happening for a while, then all of a sudden, meltdown, and we have a cry. I've had many of those in my time, and there is so much to be said for when you are in that cry, in that meltdown, in that what am I doing with my life, and you go, you know what, I'm going to keep going because this really matters to me, because I'm really passionate about this, because this is what I love doing. I don't feel like that is celebrated as much as when you post on Instagram, I've got a job. That's how I feel about that. So yeah, again, just to reiterate, if you take anything from this video. I'm gonna say a new thing. But it's appreciate what you're doing. Appreciate you, because this is actually quite a nice full circle. Know who you are and appreciate that person that you are. Because we've all heard of that thing where you'd never say that to a friend. It's not even so much in the saying, it's if your friend was working on that goal and keeping going, even though these obstacles are flying at them, you'd be like, that is so amazing, that is so inspirational, but we never look at ourselves. So I'm here to tell you that if you can relate to that whole thing that I've just said, you're doing amazing. And if you need me to tell you directly, please message me, because I have experienced and am experiencing that very thing. And I'm sure I will experience it again. Bonus point to this. This was not something I originally wrote down to speak about, but came up when I was talking about another point. And that is the question of, when am I gonna feel like I'm a performer? I graduated in 2020, as I've said. I did my first contract. I had done a few like 1-day paid jobs, but nothing, not a contract where you're going in and out of the same job, until the winter of 2023. 3.5 years after I graduated. Again, note the pandemic, because the timeline is not the same as if there hadn't have been, we won't see the word again. So it felt like 3.5 years, but it also felt like less, but it also felt like more. And I remember before I got that job being like, can I call myself a performer if I have never been paid to perform? So if you're feeling like that, then you're not alone. It makes me feel sad that that is the standard. I remember being told, oh, you can't say that you've done that because you weren't paid for it, or you can't put that on your CV because you haven't been paid for it. I'm just thinking back to that version of myself, and when I graduated, I definitely had the struggle of who am I as a performer, along with the struggle of who am I as a person without performing. And then to feel like you're not even a performer because you haven't been paid to perform. I also think it puts a bit on this pedestal of when you get your first job, everything else will figure itself out. Maybe for some people it does, maybe for some people it does not. I fell into the second camp. Coming home from my first job, I was like, okay, what do I do now? Because I've achieved the thing I've been wanting for so long. And now I've done that first job, but now, God, I'm really trying to, I feel like this is a difficult thing to talk about without me knowing who I'm speaking to, other than giving my experience broadly. If you are feeling this right now, then please feel free to message me and we can talk about it more, because this is specific, I feel, to whoever feels like this. But just as a general, there are many currencies in life, and I'm not talking euros, pounds, dollars, Australian dollars. There's money as a currency, there's time as a currency, there's energy as a currency. Again, this kind of links back nicely to what we're talking about with values. Who creates the monetary value of things? Are the humans. Some people might say something is worth £1. Some people might say something is worth £100. Here we go. This hard drive. I bought this hard drive, I'm gonna estimate about £100. This hard drive now has all of my photos and videos I've ever taken on it. So if this was taken and it was held ransom, here's a story, take this for inspiration. If you're a writer, my hard drive is held ransom and someone says to me, you have to pay the value of this to get it back. I would not be paying £100. I couldn't even put a price on this. You know what I mean? 100 to a million. Don't let what other people define as a performer, what is valuable as a performer, is value to you. This is hard. I feel like I've I'm opening up something that I haven't thought about for a while. Okay, conclusion to this. Don't let someone else tell you who you are. Again, I don't really like to use the don'ts and the shoulds, but I will use it for this. The only person who can tell you who you are is yourself. So again, to nicely link back to the beginning of this video, you have to know who that person is. Thank you so much for watching the first episode of Sip and Sweet. We drank 2 teas this episode, it probably could have been 3, and ate the deliciously yellow cookie that I made. Again, don't expect me to make something every time. It's not gonna happen. If you got anything from this video, then please leave a comment, send me a message. Honestly, the thought of just one person messaging me saying, when you said this one sentence, I learned this, I felt this, makes me feel fulfilled. So please let me know. I would love to know. Also, if you have any questions or personal experience that you want to share, please message me, please leave it in the comments. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you are having an incredible day, and I'll see you next time for the next episode of Sip and Sweet, or for another video before then. P.S. I'm gonna put this up there online, because then I will do it for the month of June. We're going to go for 2 uploads a week, which is hilarious because I'm filming this on the day that I'm posting. So in order to meet 1 video a week, we're actually gonna post 2. Does that make sense? That's not girl maths, that's Olivia maths. Okay, I'm gonna go now.